I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Ditte Jorgensen, Director General of the European Commission's Energy Department. Ditte?
Warm greetings from Commissioner Simpson. She regrets that she was not able to join me, but conversely, I'm very, very glad to be here. The topic you're discussing today, the topic we're discussing today, is of great importance to us, to Europe, for energy security, for the climate crisis, for the energy crisis. So we're really putting a lot of different objectives and good things together in the work you're doing here. So I would like to start your association for putting together the impressive agenda, the very good speakers, the very good panel here. And I am really glad to talk about energy efficiency, because our policy is energy efficiency first. And that's with good reasons. It's more than just a principle, more than just a mantra. This is how we have to design our policy. Not just because the cheapest energy is the energy we don't use, it's also the safest energy is the one we don't use, and there are no emissions to the energy we don't use. So again, for the energy crisis, for the climate crisis, for our competitiveness, for all of the things we want to achieve, energy efficiency comes first and is absolutely critical. So very glad to talk about that, and glad to talk about energy efficiency in the context of digitalization and the sustainability of digital infrastructures. Both digitalization and the green energy transition are top of the European agenda and will remain top of the European agenda. We presented in October 2022 an action plan for the digitalization of the energy system, a good example of how these agendas are closely combined. Our plan for the digitalization of the energy system is, of course, part of the European Green Deal, and it also aims to develop a more competitive market for digital energy services, ensuring, of course, data privacy, sovereignty, and it supports the necessary investments into digital energy infrastructure. And again, the digitalization of our energy system is critical for our efficiency, critical for our flexibility, and to allow for the integration of much higher shares of intermittent renewable energy into our system. One of the pillars of the plan, and I think you will know that, is to ensure that the growing energy needs that we have in the ICT sector, and these are significant energy needs, that those energy needs, that energy consumption aligns with the European Green Deal, and that is a critical point in achieving climate neutrality, in implementing both the Green Deal, but of course also Repower EU, the energy security aspect, the objective of becoming independent from Russian fossil fuels and reducing the overall fossil fuel content of our energy mix quickly and as swiftly as possible as regards the wider green transition. What we have seen over the past year in terms of energy efficiency and energy savings has been very impressive, driven by very high energy prices, by the energy crisis, the risks for security of supply, the risk for shortages. We have seen public authorities, we have seen private actors, we have seen private citizens taking measures to save energy. We have driven that in Europe through a very, very close cooperation with member states and with the European Parliament, including specific emergency regulation to lower our demand of both gas and electricity to stay secure, but also very closely related to and supportive of the overall green transition. In this context, data centers, as a very significant energy user, will have to recognize their responsibility and step up the efforts that they are already undertaking to reduce energy use. We have an estimate, and it's a rough estimate, but the estimate is that last year the power used by all the different types of data centers was as much as 100 terawatt hours. It could be more because we do not have a full mapping. We don't have all the data, and I will come back to that later. So talking of energy efficiency, the good news is, of course, that there was a political agreement on the Energy Efficiency Directive, a very long night of negotiations for colleagues involved in that, and a very good outcome because we now have a political agreement on the high level of ambition on energy efficiency, so a very important outcome. There are different examples in that outcome, in that political agreement, of significant improvements in our energy efficiency policy and in our energy efficiency instruments. We are, for example, seeing new provisions on audits for the large energy consumers. We will see requirements for the more effective use of waste heat, essentially energy that we, in many cases, accept to just let disappear into thin air, literally, losing energy, but of course also emitting much more than what is necessary if we are more energy efficient. Other provisions as part of the Energy Efficiency Directive are strengthened measures around planning, monitoring, system integration as a critical aspect of the green transition, and that can really benefit industry and also our wider economy and European citizens. One of the specific aspects in the Energy Efficiency Directive political agreement that I would like to flag in this context is the reporting obligations linked to data centers. I have talked about the very significant energy use of data centers. You know that better than everyone. You are also aware of the very significant energy inefficiency linked to a number of data centers, and you are aware of the need to address that. And so this new reporting obligation that will start from 2024 really is a very good step in helping us have a clearer understanding and in incentivizing measures that can help bring down energy use and increase the energy efficiency of the centers, making use of the heat that goes out, but of course also tracking water and renewable energy consumption of these centers. So this is important, again, to make sure that we together can take the right measures, act efficiently when it comes to lowering the emissions and lowering the energy consumption of the IT sector. We need to have the right data. We need to have an accurate understanding of what the situation is in order to be able to design the right measures and to take the right action. And again, this is where we lack data, and that's an important aspect of the outcome on the Energy Efficiency Directive, that we will start establishing more accurate data. The estimate here is that we have as many as 1.2 million enterprises that have, more than 1.2 million server rooms of enterprises, micro data centers, and then data centers that fall below the 100 kilowatt IT power. And then we have about 16,000 data centers that have more than 100 kilowatt hour. So really significant numbers of companies, of public activities that relate to data and relate to the IT sector, where we can become better at monitoring, at collecting data, and addressing the data of the significant diverse nature of the sector and of the operators in this sector. So we need more data on how many data centers actually reuse the waste heat that I mentioned from their servers. What is the energy efficiency potential of these data centers? We see it's a very significant challenge, and we need to have information on exactly how significant is the challenge and how can we best do it. We would see that energy efficiency could improve by around as much as 50% in existing installations, again, based on the information we have. So there's room for action, room for improvement, and I think it's very useful to have these discussions here today. And rather than building our policies on assumptions and on hearsay, we want to make sure we have the right data. On the basis of the data, we would propose way forwards, working with the sector to build a more sustainable and competitive data center sector across the European Union. By mid-25, so in just 2 years from now, we will assess the data from the first reporting, and we will then come back with ideas and possible proposals for next steps, again, in dialogue and in working very closely with the sector, as well as, of course, with member states and public authorities, both local and national. We, in the European Commission and in DG Energy, feel confident that this stepwise approach, where we collect the data, where we receive the reporting, and where we make good use of that, we believe that that is the soundest approach. It is transparent, it is inclusive, and again, it is based on facts and data. We have been open and working with the stakeholders. We have met a large number of companies, associations, public authorities, and agencies, and we already have organized 2 workshops with a significant interest and a significant number of participants. So a lot is going on transparency, also from our side, and from how we organize our work. So I would like to encourage all of you to continue your participation in this important process because you have knowledge, insights, facts, so please help share them so that we can develop this policy in the best possible direction, again, for a competitive data center structure around Europe. We are following up on the political agreement reached on the Energy Efficiency Directive, working to draw up the necessary legislative or regulatory actions, including delegated acts. And then, in addition to that, we are putting together a guidance document to help clarify what is correct implementation, what is the right follow-up to these provisions, so that we do not create regulatory uncertainty or so that we do not create an unnecessary administrative burden on companies and local and public authorities in the implementation of this important legislation. There are a number of other things going on in addition to what is under the Energy Efficiency Directive, and just to mention a few of the things of direct relevance to the sector is, of course, our eco-design requirements. We are reviewing the regulation for servers and data storage products, a really critical point in improving the energy efficiency and the performance of the IT sector. And as you mentioned, Dave, in your opening, we have the Climate Neutral Data Center Pact, which is really an important instrument, an important vehicle. We're glad to see the significant engagement in that and the creation of the certification process that is linked to that pact. We see strong signals from industry that would like to lead sustainability efforts, and we very much welcome that interest and that leadership from industry. I know that many of the leading cloud providers and data center operators in Europe have reaffirmed pledges and have announced the first certificates that show that they are achieving or getting close to the goals committed to in the pact. So this is very welcome news, and I would like to congratulate those of you who are there in terms of commitments and engagement to achieve these objectives. So, all in all, a lot to do, but also I think a very positive message in terms of what has already been done, the very good processes that are ongoing, the significant achievements at company level, at private sector level, but also the very important steps forward at European level and with European governments. So with that, I wish all of you a good discussion with this excellent panel sitting next to me, and I look forward to hearing about what has been discussed today and what are the outcomes. Thank you very much.